In this video, we are going to talk about data deduplication in Windows Server 2012 R2 and also test deduplication on a volume to see how it works and the PowerShell commands to do it. Let's first talk about what deduplication is. Deduplication is a new feature that came out in Windows Server 2012. And it got some enhancements in Windows Server 2012 R2. It is usually found on storage devices or storage appliances, but starting with Windows Server 2012, Microsoft introduced it in the common operating system model. So now you can have any normal server that can deduplicate files and act like a storage device. Deduplication can be enabled on a per volume basis, and it has a lot of PowerShell commandlets and server manager integration, so you have a couple of options to enable it and manage it. The usage scenarios for data deduplication are general purpose file server. This can be basically any normal file server you have in your environment. Hyper-V or VDI servers, and this is where a great enhancement came in Windows Server 2012 R2. In 2012 you could only deduplicate offline VHD or VHDX files. So for example, files stored on a library server, but starting with R2 you can also deduplicate running hard disk files. So you can use it on VDI environments, for example. The third scenario might be backup servers, so backup workloads, which usually have a lot of files that are the same. And here is a short rundown of how dedup works. After you enable deduplication on a volume, it will start scanning the volume to find files that apply for deduplication, and it will split those files into variable sized chunks. All unique chunks will be placed in a chunk store somewhere on the hard drive, and then the files will have a pointer to each chunk. So if you have 10 files that are the same, you will actually consume the space that the chunks consume, and then all those chunks will have links to where the files would have been normally. From time to time, the chunk store will be scanned, and all chunks that do not have links will be deleted, and also corruption will be remediated if it can. And all these jobs that I mentioned are implemented in a task scheduler. And here are the task types that you can have in data deduplication. First is the optimization task. This is the central point of dedup. This scans the files, creates the chunks, and places the chunks in the chunk store, also creating the links to the original file. We also have a garbage collection task that reclaims space by deleting all the unused chunks. Integrity scrubbing is the task that remediates any corruption if possible. And there is also an unoptimization task that has the job to unoptimize the files from a volume in case you want to disable data deduplication on that volume. This last task can only be run manually. It is not set to run automatically. Okay, so we have a volume. Let's say this is volume D that has 4 files on it. And when you enable deduplication, let's say that it also creates the chunk store, which you can see over here. Now the first thing it has to do, of course, is scan the files and separate them into chunks and find the chunks that are the same. Let's say that this file, all of it is a chunk. Okay. This one it finds only half, and the other half is something else. Good. This file, maybe all of it is the blue chunk for some reason. And we have another file which is found like this. Deduplication does its job. And this one, I guess it's more complex. So it found all the chunks. Now it will put all the unique ones into the chunk store. So we have the blue one. Okay, we have the red one, and we have the green one. What it does now is start creating links to all of these files. So the blue chunk is linked to this file. It's also linked here, and it's also linked here. Now you see these three parts. The space occupied is now only once instead of three times. We have the red chunk, which is also once, second, third, so it's three times, and the green chunk, basically no real space saved here because it appears only one time, but it still works the same. It is placed in the chunk store and a link is created. So you can deduce that we might save a lot of space by this not very well drawn out diagram. This is the very high view of how it works, but the way I like to see it usually is really on a server, configuring it and seeing how it works. So let's jump to a machine and try it out. So let's see how deduplication works. It's actually very simple. On one of my servers on BCM01, I made a volume D and I copied a couple of files, and you see that I copied the same file 3 times with different names. So basically these two files should not occupy this space after deduplication is enabled and ran. So the first thing we have to do is to install the data deduplication feature, which is a sub-feature of the file services role. I'm logged on to BCM01 with PowerShell remoting, so let's run the command. And with that out of the way, I can show you now that you also get a new PowerShell module with a lot of commandlets to manage data deduplication. And another thing you get is this cool executable, this cool application that can evaluate a volume for deduplication and tell you the space savings without actually enabling deduplication on it. Let's run it and see what we get for D. And we can see that with compression we should get a space saving of about 500 megabytes or 77%. Let's see if this is really what we will get. DDP-eval shows you what it thinks you will get, but you should not trust it 100%. It may show you a little more or a little less than what you will actually get with deduplication enabled. This is the command to enable deduplication on a volume. Now it's enabled, but for now it's only enabled, it didn't do anything yet. And this is a good thing because we also need to set some parameters. You would not do this normally on a production server, but for test we need it. This command sets deduplication to deduplicate any file, no matter how old it is. Usually dedup will not take into account files that maybe are 1 or 2 days old. It usually takes files that are older. With this we specify that it should deduplicate all files. And now we can start the optimization job. So the job has started. We can monitor its progress with this command. And we see that it's already running. And I think it's already done. With the get dedup status, you can get the status of all your deduplication enabled volumes. For us it's just D. And we see that the saved space is really close to what ddpeval showed us. Now the free space is 5.58 gigabytes. And if we look into Server Manager on BCM01, it should also show us here a nice representation of what we got. So these are the savings, deduplication rate, free space and capacity for the D volume. Now in case you want to disable deduplication on a volume, you have this command. So now it's disabled, and then we run the unoptimization job to bring the files back to the way they were. And this will take some time, it's not real time. We have to wait, I guess, a couple of minutes. But we can, of course, see if the job is still running, and with status, now we don't get anything because we don't have any more volumes that have deduplication enabled. So this was a quick look at data deduplication. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a share. Also, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing so you can be notified when I put out new videos. And thanks a lot for watching.